Okay, let's get started. Good morning, Issa. How you doing? A good day. Hope things are well. Good morning, one line. Oh dear. I am off to a sleepy start this morning, so I apologize. Um, my wife and daughter are off school today, so I didn't have to get up quite so early, and apparently I needed some sleep. So we had a bit of a quick start. Um, get rid of Copilot off my taskbar. Microsoft. Yeah, good, good. Okay. Worth it. Okay, so yesterday we were working on tasks. I intend to continue that today and get a task added. Um, that I spent a lot of yesterday kind of explaining things and going over things, and sometimes that might seem like it's not really useful considering I should be coding, but just being able to talk about stuff is useful from a do I understand the components effectively? Am I using them in the way that I think I'm using them? I'm kind of validating as I talk. So I don't have any problems with talking through these things and keep discussing these things because it is an effective method of growing knowledge for others, but for myself. So yeah. Okay. So tasks. That is what we'll focus on today. So yesterday we got the database in place. We got the LS tasks database uh, ready. So we have a table and my machine restarted overnight, so I'm just kind of checking on. Yep, that's all up and running properly. These end anyway, so I'm fine with that. I don't need to use connect, etc. So the table has identify a title description. That is wrong. We need to add the other columns to that. Um, I completely forgot that I have a base class. So entity base carries ID and identifier. It also carries date added last updated. Right. So we need those fields. Column, date added, date time, not null. Um, UTC, get UTC date. Defaults, if you're using them from Entity Framework, I don't believe defaults work effectively. But if I was to insert a record into this table, having the default expression there does at least ensure that that will be populated with at least now, and the user doesn't have to worry about it. So, and then last updated date time, that can be null, that will be null. Okay, so let's okay that. Let's script that out. Generate DDL to clipboard. Go down to configure to scripts, tasks, tasks. Now we've got our updated. Yeah. I don't think we'll be searching for tasks by date added, so we should be fine there. Okay. So we have a task. We've created these private fields, which means we don't have the ability to construct that. Um, so what we do is we create a private constructor. I believe that's my pattern, right? So we create a private constructor. What that does, so entity framework doesn't actually need a constructor to construct an object. It uses a similar pattern to my object builder, I believe, because there's no public constructor. And when you make a private constructor, it hides the constructors of the object. So entity framework definitely doesn't need a constructor to build an entity. So this is okay. So what this does is allows me to prevent, well, it stops me from just creating one of these without actually having the domain event added. That's what it's really doing. So yeah, so we create a private task and it has string title, string description. Who it's created by could be useful. Um, so the reason I'm not worried about last updated by is I was considering this yesterday as I was talking about it, is who it was created by is useful and it's a good piece of information, but then who last updated it could be actually tracked by looking at the changes on the object. So we can figure out who last changed it that way. Whether that's going to be effective or not, I don't know. Whether that's not just a snapshot, because essentially you could do that. You could do that on the view side. You don't need it on the actual core data side. But created by. It's implicit. So let's do this. Actually, let's do that. Let's do GUID created by identifier. Yep, it knows what I'm going to do. For the most part, there. The only difference is we're going to do task.add domain event, and we're going to create a domain event for task created, and then we're going to return task. So over in our domain, we need a directory for events, and we're going to do task created. That's a record GUID identifier. One thing I did the other day is I have all these planning item, creative planning item, whatever. I actually bundled the requirements up in this way because they're all just single lines. Hey, Ethan, how you doing? Sorry, my brain. How have we determined the type of gamer that we want it to be at? I haven't actually. I haven't. Um, that is actually a real thing. Things are well. We're just creating these tasks. So task is such a in every domain I've worked in, there's been a component of the domain that overlaps with our wording in technologies, whether it be in field service, we have services, so you end up with a service class or whatever, and that doesn't really collide with the language, or admittedly. But then, but we use the word service. So if you want to deal with services, you might have the services service or something like that. Similarly, in um, in the aircraft world, you're talking about the model of an aircraft. So you have model, a model. But we had models namespace with the models with the model object talking about, and it was a model. So yeah, naming matters, but naming is also sometimes conflicting. So because I'm referring to these as tasks, these are tasks of a requirement. I've got two choices. So I'm going to deal with it, which is the choice we're going to take, um, or try and redefine the word we use for building a list of things to do, which um, in this case, this will return a task, but not the task we might expect. So we're gonna find many times that it's going to conflict in namespacing and in naming with actual, but it's not a ticket. One and daughter, by the way. Think I'm a wob. I mean, we could go with the generic, yeah. So, well, like you said, in this case, tasks will only be tasks for requirements, right? Would requirement task work for the entity? It could. It could. But well, no, it can't, because in this case, this domain tasks itself is its own component of the system, right? Um, 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 Ezra Thindle is a sarcastic individual, so don't worry. Um, he's just pointing out some of the amusement of using the word task. So yeah, no worries there. I understand. Um, so a task could come from something that isn't a requirement, right? It's a piece of work to do. Is and the reason I'm not calling it story is because a story is derived from the meaning we add in planning, essentially. So whereas Jira has a story type and you can subtask the story, we're not going to have that story type. Each task is going to be something we want to work on as a component of work. So, and as I've been thinking about this, as I've been going through this the last couple of days, it's really highlighting, hey, am I not, can I propose different ways of using Jira? Um, are requirements one to many with tasks? I picture it many to many. One requirement can have many tasks. A planning item can have many requirements. Group. and one task have many requirements. Okay, if we are drilling down into the usage of task, yes, a task could have, because the requirements of a task, and I'm not getting into that right now, the requirements of the task are the development requirements, right? So yeah, we'll get into how useful that can be later. So yeah, if you're thinking about once you've got the requirement built and you build out the task from the requirement, it won't go back to requirements also. Requirements in the planning domain, right? Even if we add them as requirements in the tasks domain, they're not the same requirement as that requirement, which is why words. And this is why when we talk about the UI, it's important to try and keep this as aligned to the UI as possible, so that we understand we're using the same language. Yeah. So tasks are their own thing. Tasks can be created independently of requirements. Tasks can be created from a support ticket. Tasks can be created from a requirement. Tasks can be created as standalone items to be worked upon. So building out those tasks, we'll get to later. But if we called them requirements of the task, they would not be the same requirements as the planning item requirement. So there you go. So we need a new task created event. And yes, I'm doing this without a unit test right this second because there's nothing to unit test. Yeah, the explanation makes me want to use a different word for task requirement. What if you switch from Agile to Scrum and call your task issues instead? Oh, that's probably enough for me. So right now, I'm aligning to people's workflows rather than their prescribed practices, right? So, and I'm trying to introduce something that will help with that problem, of we often end up stuck on writing stories and not being too technical in them. um, so I'm not trying to say we keep saying we do Agile, we keep saying we do Scrum, and we being we in general, right? And we actually never do either of them properly. Right. We never embrace them fully because the software practices we use or the processes we try and put in place are what they are. So if we just once we start to get into the UI, once we start to build out, I don't have the UI up, so that's useful. The Agile Manifesto, I hate that wording, is like really tiny. Yeah, it's a very simple set of concepts. And again, I'll repeat it again, written by a bunch of consultants that had already written books on or were writing books on software practices, and they aligned. So the Agile Manifesto, if you follow the Agile Manifesto and then look at those set of books that were written by the people who wrote the Agile Manifesto, for the most part, they are consultants that work in and are respected as independent coders. They're not. I mean, I'm not saying they don't have the experience. I definitely don't doubt they have experience, but I'm saying that they are written, the books and stuff that are written that came after the Agile Manifesto was published are just a set of books that back up, clean practices and whatnot. And it's a little bit more idealistic than most companies can do because human beings don't easily organize. A bunch of middle managers and consultants got their grubby dirty little fingers on it, and Scrum was spawned. It's pointed out to me lately the practices meant as a starting point. Yeah. So again, that's why I don't. This tool, this platform, or whatever we want to call this thing, this mess, is aimed at trying to solve that problem of, hey, developers need this, product and management need this, and the ultimate need of meeting. So Jira, people use Jira. You can use Kanban. You can use Scrum in there. Um, it we then try and put more process on place, and the developers end up with the burden. Well, you would be shocked, and maybe not, about the large discussion I've been having on best practices lately. It's right in the word best, not only best. Sometimes not best for your requirements. I still cannot fully tell the crux of his argument, but it's around best practices are the wrong viewpoint. Best practices are the wrong viewpoint. I'm 75% certain that the call for return to office is because the middle managers need to show that it's their job actually does something. Maybe. Maybe. Again, I'm trying to focus on, hey, give the developers the work to do, and all the reporting and visibility of where we are with those things is out of the hands of the developers. Right? They don't. Well, they don't need to be involved to be able to see at a glance the current status of any piece of work in the system. Well, a call like that is always going to come from upper management, but I think the point is that it's the middle management saying that they're struggling, that's triggered it. I think that's the yeah. A call middle management is never going to be the ones that publicly say, yeah, return to office. Default's had a late night again. Morning deflows. Okay, so let's add that into the script before we forget it. That would be created by identifier, unique identifier not null. You cannot reorder columns, and it bugs me if it's out of sequence. So refresh that. There we go. My to-do items on a task are very low. So what I'm hoping to do with this is, I really do want to get it to the point where I can hand it to you guys to play with, and see how you might use it, and see how your different use cases would work with it, and really start to tell me, is there value? Honestly, it feels like there is value in what I'm doing, and this focus, although another long a long path to take, is driven by recent experience and wanting to get this component visible so I can start talking about it more. Because the more I talk about it, it's just words until I actually do something. So yeah, um, yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we have tasks and associated projects. We have the ability to um, create a task at the task level, not the actual app level. Um, yeah. Um, so yeah, we've got to be careful that we're constantly checking this though now, because we call it tasks. And again, I'm differentiating this from the word story. because it's not a story, it's an actual item of work to be done by the developers. And it's this that we actually focus on. So these can be technical, these can have descriptions. We will add further pieces to these as we grow. Yeah, it's a documentary. So let's add the other components. So API is going to be the harder one. I haven't created one of these in a little while. Sorry. Check on the proximity of my coffee. It's here. So I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. I need to get my coffee. Okay. Sorry about that. I've got coffee dogs. The dogs think I have food. And because I eat food quicker than anybody else, they come to me first if they think they're going to get it. Because when I finish my food, I will give them a little bit at the end. Um, no, I don't have any food. And because I eat faster, they come to me first because they know they've still got a chance of going to the others afterwards. Okay. So we're not going to do a Blazor app, that's for certain. Web API and Dad drops a lot of floor on a lot of cheese on the floor. Yeah. Oh dear, if tasks. This is yeah. Sausage cheesy there when she wasn't looking. Nice. So, let's create that. It's always pretty chunky, but how can I not when she looks like? Yeah. These two, Loki, the way you look at him, you'd think we were starving him. The way he acts, sometimes you'd think we were starving him. Don't think I need a sample HTTP call. Wow. Yeah, that's a good age. Okay, let's remove this fluff. I don't like starting up a new web app because I forget every time everything I'm going to do. Okay, let's add the things I do know. Manage NuGet packages, fast endpoints. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when, because .NET 9 doesn't have Swagger and stuff, does it? By default. Yeah, I guess we'll see once we update them all. That was 12. Yeah, I don't like using Swagger, to be honest, right now. It's not a focus, especially considering these are internal APIs. Um, yeah. So the API hasn't changed, is what my primary concern there is, because they've removed it. My worry is the API might change, so it might actually create some problems. I think when people talk about documentation, etc., Swagger is useful. It takes time though, and it's time that you don't often spend when building the API out. In my defense, I'm the developer. I understand the APIs I'm using, so I'm not even going to look at that stuff, right? Um, if I was working, as I said it before, if there was teams working on this, right? So, because of the size of some of these components at this point, you could potentially have teams working on the specific components or whatever, rather than just UI or whatever. So at that point, these APIs are a little bit more important to be documented. Swagger is great for generating API clients. Swagger UIs, that's important. I didn't create an API client off of Swagger doc in a while. Yeah. Yeah. Time. Time is always a challenge. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's get rid of all this fluff. I don't remember seeing it, but I don't think there's a checkbox to say, please don't fill in all the rubbish from weather forecast. I don't want it. Just give me a blank template. I can hear the dogs crying, reminding my wife that they are there and starving. Okay, we'll start as we mean to go on. So I've really started to embrace building some of these things out where um, these configuration methods, so I don't have to dump them all inside of here. But the challenge is they're not really reusable between projects all the time, because they are kind of specific to the configuration of the application they're in. So, but it does clean them up a little bit. Okay, so let's do that. Where do you come from? Extensions auth 0 and yeah. I don't think. Yeah, that's not in Foundation. That's in actual shared in here. That's specific to this project. Project identity. That's an important one. So health checks are once we plug the system into Ocelot, the API gateway stuff, and into console, the health checks are there for making sure that they show us alive all the time. Also, when you start to use Kubernetes, they definitely do hold use as well. Use authentication, use authorization, use fast endpoints. And we're going to need these in a minute. So fast endpoints is a library for producing the API endpoint stuff. So rather than using controllers or minimal APIs, that's what these are. So these endpoints here, these are fast endpoints. I was using our Dallas endpoints originally, but even he recommends using in even he switched out using our Dallas endpoints for fast endpoints in whatever Microsoft stack app he's using builds. So maybe a question I really should already know everything about, but where's use health checks from? Use health checks here. Yeah, it's in the middleware, right? In ASP.car. Yeah, so this just pings right now and just pinging. Yeah, true. So if it gets pinged, this is yeah, everything's good. Don't forget to watch Office Space, everyone. Morning, Mojo. How you doing? Yours on the prompter, I can't tell the difference. I can't always read the names properly because the the contrast is hard. Appearance. Let me see if we can change that because Mojo and Dota. I've been using the color to reference who I'm looking at, whose name I'm looking at. Colorize author names. That makes it readable. I'll remove that from that. Yeah. Yeah, but on the prompter, the because of the angle of the light in my eye, it all blurs. So I just turned off the colorization. That works. It just looks very flat now. Okay. There were different shades of green, to be fair. Um, well, now you're very distinct. I think mine is, uh, yeah. I think I need this coffee now. Oh, joy. Okay, so we need the libraries. So we need, what's it doing? We need to add um, our mediator outbots, our mediator outbot SQL Server, and our Kafka outbots. Anytime we're going to publish domain events, anytime we're going to publish system-wide events, we are going to publish the fact that a task was created, so we do know this. This is not all just experimentation. So we need that. And we need that. We need most of this, actually. I'm just letting you like chat about the color of the text. So oh dear. No audio. 1 second, mine. You can't hear me? It's coming through on the YouTube stream. No worries, no worries. I was reading the chat on Twitch regarding the color of the names. Okay. Welcome in. How you doing? What? I don't have any food. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay. So we're going to add some configurations. These configurations are going to be pretty similar. So let's take this one. Let's see how much of it matches. The configuration. Add. We should have add Kafka available because that's an extension method added by my library stuff. Console service address, Kafka configuration. Okay, so this is, so what I'm doing is I'm basically don't always assume that I'm going to have reusability. I know that there are instances of this that don't look the same and don't behave. Um, so, when I reflect back over this later and see that I've used these in 6 different places, then I'll look at how to um, uh, make them more reusable. But anyway, for now, let's take these and I can't do it that way. There's a weird UI quirk there. Maybe it's because I've a monitor up here and Rider doesn't know. If I right click, it doesn't know how to show it properly and puts the top of the menu off the top of the screen. Mediator configuration. So again, these may do the same thing. Port. Okay, so that is because I don't have an application level yet, so we're gonna comment that out. Coffee time. It's important. Oh, too many in there. But what? Sorry. Okay, so we add them in there, and now let's go and get the other components. So all of that, so I can use something like this, right? So we're missing console service discovery, which we'll get in a second. We can import that. We're missing database right this second. And we're missing use service bus. We don't need use service bus right this second, because we're not using any commands or anything from that. Oh, too many. So we need some configuration pieces. Again, relatively simple stuff. We're going to take that. We don't need, and this is why I use one password for all of them, by the way, because from development perspective, it doesn't matter if these get committed because it's all development stuff. It's never, this is not, um, well, these passwords in here are only if you've got a development environment running anyway, so I'm not concerned about that being there. It's one user for all the databases. Even though they're going to the exact same database, there is potential for these to be in a separate database, from the because the amount of times they're being hit, etc. And you can also use a different technology. You don't have to use. You don't actually don't. You have to use just because we're using SQL here does not mean we're actually using. We need to use SQL for the outbox. We could use the Mongo outbox for the actual outbox implementation. Okay, so we're going to produce messages. We need our auth information, and we need our connection strings. So that gets us that. We need our console service discovery. So console service discovery, this registers this endpoint as being um, as being part of console. So we're going to need the console extensions in a minute. Right, we're going to do that one. Actually, I think that might actually be available to us because I think that's a global, yeah, or shared piece. I know the YAML engineer confirmed. Ooh. So if you're new to the stream, um, you are more than welcome to ask questions. You are more than welcome to, you don't have to just follow along with what I'm coding or in this case, copy and pasting a lot of. I will happily divert and describe things as you want. I'm not um, opposed to going through the application and showing what I can. Okay, so let's get the database component here. The reason I don't just copy and paste the file is beyond me. Mainly because it creates a namespace properly. Add pool DB context. So in here, we're going to reference this one. Need that. And that needs to be that. And that needs to be that. Wow. Maybe copy and pasting was a better idea anyway. Okay. So we have the shared kernel. And we should be able to reference Why don't you like task infrastructure and import tasks? Right. Did I not call it? It's task repository, I suppose. Off to work. Doctor, thank you very much for coming hanging out. Appreciate it. Have a great day at work. So now we can uncheck that. That leaves them intact. Okay, we do need to modify that configuration. We need that copied again. I'm on one of my more distracted ones today, it seems. So we're going to set 7079 as our service address. And this is going to be the tasks API. Not sure if you saw a carpenter is back. It is his first stream like this one. Nice. Hope he's well. Was he traveling or just burned out on streaming? Because he did some stupid long streams as well, didn't he? So this says health check enabled false. If I was deploying this to something like Kubernetes, etc., I'd definitely set them to true. I just don't want to be spamming the system with health checks right now, which is why I put the health check components in, but I don't enable them there by default. Okay, so that's that. That's that. We now need this. So we don't have the mediator component yet. Oh, okay. I mean, just this amount of streaming can get hard some days because there's just some days where you don't want to do something or you're not as focused and um for my stream it's just a come hang out and I'm gonna waffle on and code, etc. So me taking a break doesn't really um I suppose if you get used to the timing of everything and it becomes part of the day, then it's a little bit more difficult. But I never consider myself to be, I'm not entertaining people, and I can relate when I stream. So, but when you do something like he does, where you're entertaining and you're educating and you are doing crazy long streams and it's very chaotic, that's got to take more of a toll. Um, yeah, are you not entertained? I would hardly call this stream entertainment. Unless you consider the code comical, in which case it could be it could be entertainment, I suppose. Um, okay, I'm trying to wire up enough here to do this without going too far, but okay. Let's add some tests. Add new project, unit test, XUnit. XUnit does not. There's no playwright explicit support for XUnit, so playwright is something I want to get into. Tests. I think that goes the opposite direction. I think that heads firmly into not going to be cool there. Tasks, application. Oh, what do I do here? My naming convention I need to reflect on. Tasks, the application, the tests. It is October. Halloween is around the corner. Okay, let's do this. So this is always so right now we're focusing on creating a task through the Tasks API. We're not creating it from planning. We're not doing that stuff. So this is just, can I insert a task? I always struggle with CRUD because unit tests for CRUD don't generally have much value. Did I insert the thing? And the code is insert thing. Yay, it's great because there's no checks on whether it exists here. This is literally just create the task as told. So if you create a duplicate task, that's a new, right? However, in this instance, I do have a domain event. So I do want to validate that when I do create a task, that the domain event is produced. So when creating a task, let's go with that for right a second. Again, I have a style of unit testing that may not all be for everyone. Task is created. Again, I feel that is a really empty test. Um, Task created. The main event is queued. I think I use the word queued. Yesterday, my senior dev said, after the feedback from the past couple of releases, I'm considering if we should migrate instead. What? Migrate? Framework to call. Upgrade, refactor, etc. Not an easy thing to do to update a system. It's easy to let systems fall behind. Developers are not always engaged at that level where they're thinking about the future of the application. A lot of developers are thinking about what task they have to do now. Which means that the older an application gets, the harder and scarier it is to do it. But at some point, and I'll repeat, I've said it several times now in the last couple of days alone, the take bold steps approach, right? You've got to do what's good for the platform. The platform does not benefit from sitting slowly getting older and more decrepit. The platform benefits from health checks regularly, from making sure that you are evaluating, should it be updated, can it be updated, why can't it be updated. Well, he also showed me his original commit for this beta feature. He wrote all the backend code and had a toggle in the controller method. Turns out the front end dev just decided not to use it. You have a very dysfunctional team. You have people working independently of one another with a shared goal, but not a shared vision of how you get in there. Um, that's for your management to stomp out. That should have been understood and described and expected before that even got there. So the fact that you released a feature that broke the customers because the front end dev decided it was too much work to leave the old version in there and put the new one in there and send a flag is bad. The fact that your back end that your senior dev decided to write a flag into the code to know whether it is being called from the new or the old rather than creating a completely different API is bad. Um, yeah, there's lots of things that could have been done differently there, and it starts with people talking and planning properly. Okay, so here we're going to create, let's again, from an alignment perspective, make sure that I'm being consistent. So add planning item. I don't use the word create. It's very easy when you're writing code and when you're writing tests and stuff to fall into the technical implementation. Do we create a task? Do we add a task? I mean, I know that they're essentially synonyms, um, but it's very important to make sure that you're consistent where you can be. And again, the naming and all that sort of thing. So I try to be consistent, and where I'm not, again, I'm not scared to change it. Task is added. And this is what code reviews are for, to catch these sorts of inconsistencies, and pairing will help with this sort of stuff because you can, and it's okay to go and look at something else that you've done to make sure that you're consistent. But this is the problem of why you shouldn't let developers create their own patterns in code either, because a pattern that is not understood could be copied because they just, if I'm referencing what we've done before, and that happens to be that one, tenant management, do I, let's say creating a project, registering a new user, those are the right terms, but I call it create user, right? But that's not a user, um, that's not an external action. That is an internal action because the workflow creates the user and then associates the user with a tenant and then invites the user, right? So there's different commands here. This is technically a domain service, I think, at this point, the way I think about it from the workflow perspective. It might be that these workflows actually become domain services and are invoked, but I don't know. But either way, the point is the naming can help you navigate the code and it can hinder you navigating the code. Again, if you're new to the stream, if you have any questions, thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, if you disagree with what I'm doing, if you don't like the style of what I'm doing, I'm open to discussion for the purpose of learning different ways of doing things, for the purpose of understanding different people's perspectives on code. So this is going to be the add task dot handler. It's going to be our subject. Again, trying to do a little TDD here, not just unit testing, trying to do test-driven development so that it's okay for this to not exist yet because I need to verify my assumptions. So my repository received, it won't receive anything until we add end substitute. Let's add our So received. And let's move them to globals as well. Okay. Using the Mac keyboard might be causing me a problem. When adding a task, we expect to receive add async arg.is task. T goes to t dot title. Task here we're going to have to be careful of because it's going to assume system threading task, I believe. Yeah. Using task equals. This is going to be dangerous. Tasks main.task. Let's reference. So now this task does point to that. The purpose of the unit tests. Can I do that at global level? I haven't tried this before. We can do that, which means that when we see task, it's going to assume that it's the task in our domain rather than the task in the system. If we had to introduce an actual task for threading, I could use the namespace explicitly in the code, which I don't like using, or I could alias it as like system task or something like that. So equals title and t dot description equals description and t dot created by identifier equals. So even though this is called created by identifier, it's implicit that it's a user, but here I'm just going to be, from the testing perspective, be very clear that it's a user identifier. Just to so that verifies that we added that for that by that user. And then we want to have private task result. Task. So here we want to verify task dot domain events dot of type task created dot is one. Identifier will be so task created coming from that user is one. Right this second, we'll worry about that later. I wish self-reviews weren't a thing. I have a hard time knowing how honest I should be because most times my boss says I'm doing a great job. Meanwhile, my self-review highlights all my shortcomings. I do the same. I had to do a self-review 2 months ago, and in it, I was like, I've not achieved very much. I wish I could have achieved more. I like working with the team. Yeah, my boss just had a one-on-one with me yesterday, and he's like, "How are you doing being alone? Like, you are a single team. Uh, you know, I'm like, I'm good. I'm reaching out and I'm talking to other people and uh, I'm interacting more. I'm building relationships. So I can hop between teams and talk to them and whatnot. So I'm feeling lonely. Yeah, it's John Holland. Good morning. How are you doing? Okay, so let's start to add some structure to this code. So now I've got my tests. We need our arrange and our act, and they're going to go weird because, that belongs in our act. So this is our task. So we're saying when we add, we want to capture that. That's not actually the right syntax though. Yeah. Good, nothing eventful happening, just the way I like it. Shouldn't have said that. So another way of doing this is to do when R goes to r.addAsync, we can say do. I think it's do, right? Yeah, do. And that captures that task rather than, yeah, it captures what's in between. We don't need a result from this, so we're not specifying the returns. I'm not responsible for anything that happens. That needs to go there. That needs to go there. Okay, so we've got the structure to execute the call. We now just need to add the components to work. So let's do this, add new task, class library in source, and that's tasks application. Again, hyphens in the actual code, periods in the unit tests. One day I'll go back and review all that because it's just changing that. Why am a whole 5 days done with my normal sprint work? No bugs popped up. Do say anything. Let me live this up. Nice. That's some good progress. Okay, here we do need mediator. So we need source generator, and I believe abstractions comes by yeah. Not to be confused with that mediator. Yeah. I get the idea of naming your library after the pattern. Yeah. Okay. So in our application, this is gonna be weird. Task application tasks. Add task. Public record command string. However, that's not quite command user. What have I called this before? Command from user. It's not. It's who did this thing so far, right? It's not share kernel. Store our dash result. So there's our record. Source user identifier. Identifier. About to start our software audit. Just got all our Azure and GS Green. So now I just need to make sure I get all my work approved before merge. Sounds like you're very organized. I come work with you. Oh, I have a coffee cup where the seam has decided that it doesn't need to hold the coffee. Well, we might be needing a .NET dev. Do you want to move to India? Um, hmm. No, I'm good, thanks. I mean, if you paid me US wages, um, that would work out okay. I command handler. Let's do that. So we should at least be able, so I'm not going to implement the code. I'm going to add this to the test builds. We actually don't need that yet. And get a way to get result. For that command from user, does that have a special behavior? I don't think it does. It just allows me to require the source user identifier. I could just create an interface for that. Let's say that the command has to have that. I think there is something that I did with it, but I'm gonna verify that. And all I'm doing there, again, is because I need to know that this exists. You're trying to, no, I'm not going to get into that one. Okay, when adding a task. So yeah, there's a reason I did that thing. I'll go and search for that afterwards to see if I actually put more purpose behind command from user. Yeah. See, build a house in the Caribbean, build a bunker, build a house on top of bunker. If hurricane comes along and destroys house, live in bunker while rebuilding house. Not sure it works out that idealistic, but yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. I was a little insensitive considering uh what just happened. Not intentionally though. Um will this run? I haven't built this since I added all these pieces, so I don't even know if the application builds yet. I mean, I'm fine. I live in South for Katrina. I just thought North Carolina was safe, but it was poor city spelling. I mean, you know, look at Sandy for New Jersey, right? And New York. Um, that was challenging. Actually, Mr. Anon, you triggered that reminder of me. I probably intended when I did this to use that as part of the so I would populate this somehow. probably was my intention. It doesn't do that. I know it doesn't do that, but I probably was thinking, well, did Sandy affect you directly? Um, I had my mother-in-law living with us for several weeks, and my mother's, my wife's grandma, and a friend from work. We were one of the few houses that had um, power in our neighborhood. Um, we lost power for a couple of hours, and a fence got knocked over. But Sandy was scary. Um, yeah. Well, so we'd actually the winter before Sandy, we actually had a massive transformer explode in our neighborhood, and we lost power for a day or so. Um, and the storm that came before Sandy also did a number on the neighborhood. So by the time that Sandy hit, all our neighborhood power had been upgraded, and we haven't had anything drastic as far as power cuts go for a while now. Uh, Add task. Okay, so the test failed quite rightly. Did they fail for the right reason? Not implemented, not implemented. Okay, so it got to calling this handle method, right? And it threw an exception. That's good. So everything else worked out fine. It's fine. So now let's go and add repository. Add repository of task. Again, we've got to be careful because again, using luckily they're using value tasks here, so I don't need to panic about this so much. Um, we need to reference a domain. Now that task should refer to entity base. Yeah, so that's fine. So we have a repository. I found a really neat feature of records. They have an implicit clone mapping feature. If you pass in a child record to the parent's constructor, you don't have to do the mapping explicitly. If you pass in a child record to the parent's constructor, huh? So they have a built-in copy constructor. I don't remember that being highlighted as a feature. Huh, that's cool. Okay, yeah, there we go. That's pretty much what we want to do. I think we're done. Um, just await that there. Just do that, and there we go. I'm in office today, but I still want to discuss some of the core Scrum stuff I learned from that podcast. Um, I don't think I have many meetings this morning, so if you jump in Discord afterwards, I'd be happy to drop in and have a chat. I'll see if I can find an example. That'd be cool. Again, when you learn more about what the language can do and you learn features. I try to drink my coffee before it's a puddle in the bottom of the cap. Um, I'm on my way to the office right now. um, Figuring out how to write more effective code and figuring out how to um, use cleaner practices and stuff is one of the things I enjoy doing. It's like again, I don't believe in just going with what I know. I do believe in opening my mind to new techniques, new methods, and changing the code accordingly and growing with it. Okay, so now we need the repository. Do we have passing unit tests? Oh, expected to receive a call matching, received one non-matching call. Okay, so we passed in title. description and created by user identifier. We didn't find this call matching. So we create a task, we add it, and then we get the identifier and send it back. That's pretty much the pattern. And we failed on the task is added part. T title, T description, and created by user identifier. When we add any task, we capture that. So we know the domain event triggered. So we know that the add was called. So let's just do arg any task. Let's run that unit test. Okay, so that works. So it does validate that. So what did I screw up? Title description. So title description, title description, title description. Ah. There we go. Now let's run it. There we go. So the code compiled fine. Everything worked fine. It just now that would have failed because that's a required field on the database. It would have crashed when I went to run it for real, but it did capture that fact by doing this. This would also capture if I was swapping them somewhere along the way. If I was swapping out title and description and transposing them or something, that would have caught that. Okay, so we have tasks. We have updated libraries, library version, package versions to latest. I do like having the ability to have, I have both repositories referenced here, but I also can nest foundation as a project in here, even though that's a separate repository. This is I like working this way. Hello, dog. I've got no food for you. No food. Go find snacks somewhere else. Other people in the house today. Right, bud? Okay. So created tasks component, introduced add task. So it's in structure, there's not much there. And then the rest is all the other projects. So that's that and that. Yeah, that's all projects. Updated, updated. You get package versions to the latest. Made my own example. Cool. Look. So page details base, contributor, page details base. So contributor application page DTO takes remote contributor page details, the page details base, and then you call base with it. It will pass down the instance and do the copy. Ah, it's impressive. It will just copy those properties for you. Cool. I can't find this documented, so I think it might be something you can do with any object in C# by using one of the new features they have. That might be worth testing. Because copy constructors are obviously copy constructors are hard, right? I wonder if the fact that they haven't documented it means it has some quirks to what it will and won't do, and it's easier to not mention it than it is to to actually document it publicly. Added scripts for creating tasks, DB. Okay. Yeah, easy to miss mappings. Yeah, so I assume there'll be some quirks there that mean it's can be challenging. Okay, we have tests. We have the basics of an API. We do not have the API yet, and we have an application. So let's go and add an endpoint into here now. So one thing to keep in mind is I'm doing this while I'm talking. I'm doing this with little focus. But in reality, adding to this system is not taking time. It is not. This isn't a day's worth of work to add this. It's not. It's just time consuming, not complexity. Things like the setting up of a new endpoint service. This is a bit more time consuming, but this even could be documented out as here. You're adding this, create this. And like I pointed out, some of these things could be configurable, right? I could make this use Kafka, take in certain configuration so that I could make these reusable. It's nice not having a lot of ceremony to add. Yeah. And as the system builds, adapting that, right? Making it more flexible, making it easier, but not making it so restrictive that you end up, there is only one way of doing things. You must be a robot. Endpoints. This still doesn't wholly feel correct. We're going to create a post endpoint. But it did take a lot of upfront work to get the platform on the way to a lot. True. Yeah. But we are at the point now where we can build things out pretty quickly. I'm going to do a copy and paste just for time, he argues. Okay, so the parameters for this, title and description, we don't need anything else. Right now, we're not doing project identifiers right this second. We're building out the basics and then we'll add on to that. Then you also have used C#, so you don't have to build it from scratch. I'm looking at some of the front ends I've worked with. Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, 79 projects. Like I do constantly stop and check, or think rather. Am I making this more complicated than it needs to be? Is it necessary? Am I solving a problem? you know, should I stop now? Uh, I think that's I would love to add to our work system as easily. Yeah, that would be nice for you. And I think overall, I mean, going through this, I mean, you and I, Mojo, have kind of gone through some of this stuff, and I think it is relatively simple to get started in. Um, we have a problem. Tracked entity response does no longer need to just exist in planning. I think I might have copied that out somewhere else. Um, hmm. So that's just a, hey, by the way, you're going to have an identifier back. That's what that's meant to do. It doesn't need to be that. But I've used it in more than one place now. And it's just basically, hey, you create this thing, here's the ID for it back. That's what the client needs in general. Here's the ID you're going to be tracking with the information you have. I was thinking about how much people might use in a day that is using .NET under the hood. Like every game you play on a mobile is probably using .NET, either in Xamarin. A lot of those games use .NET. I mean, or they're using Unity. If you look at every game that's using Unity, um, that's essentially .NET, right? Rust, Escape from Tarkov, Godot. Godot's 50-50, right? Well, no, probably not. I think we'd probably find that Godot's more like 70-30 GD script to .NET right now, but it's becoming more popular. Um, and there's a lot of other frameworks. There's actually a lot of other frameworks that use .NET. I found, yeah. Well, I didn't find several of them. Um, Deflux has mentioned to me before. There's other game application engines and stuff that use .NET. Does GDScript still use .NET to run it? I don't know. I think GDScript is the primary language of Godot, right? I don't know how it works under the hood, to be honest. I'd be interested if GDScript was Python style syntax that was interpreted to .NET. That'd be hilarious. Ah, take care, Mojo. See you later. They can go, yeah. I'm debating whether there's much use in creating this because there's no need for it in Foundation. There's definitely no shared kernel requirement for this piece, right? It's a thing I'm using in this API set. It just represents a. Let's just move it. Let's just copy it. I'm not messing around with it because it's not. Right. Okay. So we get a response. Port missing references. Where's that coming from? Post. That's a fast endpoints component. Why is that not using fast endpoints yet? Oh, because it's used the wrong thing. Import. Just do that. Do that and remove the pieces you don't want. There you go. Add task. And that's going to be request.title, request.description, get user identifier. Wow, okay. Oh, Major oversight. Major oversight on my part. This goes back to Dota's point yesterday. I have the concept of tenancy in the system. Task is not, task is standalone, but it still has a tenant that it belongs to. I don't want everyone to see the tasks for every, just because I created it from a user doesn't mean that um, it shouldn't be created for the tenant, right? Uh, yeah, that's a major oversight on my part. So that is required. That is absolutely required for this. We cannot not have that drop. Yes. So yeah, I'm glad I read that then. Um, user.get tenant identifier. All the once the user is authenticated, it will have its current tenant identifier attached to it to the token. So that's the intention. Um, yeah, you need to change, don't you, buddy? Um, private read only period tenant identifier. Why can I not spell that word today? Considering how many times I've written that identifier, yeah. Um, you'd think that'd be a component of process by now, because words are hard. Yeah. T dot tenant identifier equals tenant identifier task. So we need so not every object requires a tenant identifier, right? Only the parent, like the root object of anything, needs a tenant identifier, because if everything's based off of that thing, other records don't need to have tenant identifier naturally attached. Some systems might do that where everything has a tenant ID. So you can find out all the requirements for a tenant or whatever. But here in this system, if you're in planning, if you want all the requirements for a tenant, you have to go through the planning items to get to the tenants. So I don't put it everywhere. I don't believe there's a need to put it everywhere. Um, so planning item has, yeah, tenant identifier. So could I avoid that in future? How would I avoid that in the future? I could create a tenanted entity base. I could create so that it's kind of obvious that this uses a tenant, and I have that as a default property, as a property there. I don't know. I'm not scared of the change. I'm just kind of appalled at myself that I forgot that that was a thing. But it does go back to Dota's point. Yes, is I'm not building this as part of many teams. I'm not building this as part of many organizations, right? I'm building this as a solo dev. And that's actually changing my focus because I'm focused on the single use case every time, not the actual um, not the multi-tenancy nature of it. So that's putting the blinkers on me a little bit. Okay, so when I did a task, task command now needs tenant identifier, and this needs. I'm not messing around with. All the unit tests in the world won't find data that should be there but wasn't there, right? Sender. There you go. So do we still pass? There you go. That still passes. We have an endpoint now for tasks. So we should be able to build. This is going to be a little messy. I need to go through all the warnings. As always, just continue my. Although I've got Streamlabs turned on to repeat this time and time again. But if you do have questions, if you do have thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, if you have concerns about what I'm doing, please feel free to chat. There is no wrong. This is a hard system to explain. So if you have questions about what it's doing, why it's doing it, how it's doing it, I'm always happy to talk about them. So do not feel that cannot be asked. I can hear Taylor putting the world to rights outside. So I think at that point, what we have here is a need to clean up some configurations. So what we do is we delete them too. We call this, I think I call this tasks project. So it runs the HTTPS project. It'll run that profile in that launch settings. Normally I clear the others up as well because I don't want them hanging out. Drag that into projects there. In our full stack now, we need to add tasks. Tasks. Because that's going to get confusing. That goes up there after previous started. The first thing that starts up should be the gateway because everything else is going to register in it. And once all the actual websites have started, we then start all the communications components for Kafka, so the receivers to populate data between systems. So full stack now would start that up. You know what? Let's just go for it. Let's see what happens. Continue this. It's going to ping in my ear for every single thing. Planning items, liquid sky. I'm just on the other screen. I'm setting up Obsidian, not Obsidian, Insomnia, to do a test to that endpoint. Right now, it's not part of the API gateway, so this is kind of not useful to start everything up. But I want to get the application started. Validate. That isn't at least broken. So what this means is tomorrow, now, we're going to focus on, hey, PH Gaming Dev, how you doing? Good morning. Tomorrow, we're going to focus on the UI aspects. We're going to add the task button in. We'll probably, because now it's a full stream, it'll be a full stream tomorrow. We'll get we'll try and figure out, can you transition between entire layouts in Angular? Well, I know you can. Can I transition between entire layouts in Angular? And then we'll add the task button in there and do it that way. So I could just drop the button in and validate that I can add a task, but that's just a UI for adding a task. There's no, yeah. So let's bring up Liquid Sky. I was going to say, don't ask me to remember that. Let it load. Let it load. Again, what we're working on right now is introducing developer tasks. So right now, we're kind of working on the requirements of this feature. Task number one of this requirement is that I am able to add a task. And again, this is, from the product perspective, when they were presenting this to us yesterday, me talking to myself, tenancy is assumed. That wouldn't actually be captured there because there's no need to capture when you're creating a task to capture the tenant. That is a development discussion that needs to happen. Say, oh, is this tenanted? Is this not tenanted? Well, it obviously is, but it's like it should be understood from the development perspective. And that's, again, kind of why I'm doing it this way, is to try and demonstrate as I go. Now, these requirements as they lay out are going to be developer driven for the most part anyway, because I'm a developer. I can't avoid that at all. But I'm hoping that the point is being made well enough by these, that this might be something that a product manager is going to put in, but there's some implicit behaviors and some assumed behaviors that just don't get carried in these things. And, when we start saying, oh, well, we need to make sure this is done, and they're like, well, that's a technical requirement. We don't add them into stories. I've been in that world. So yeah, this allows us to separate those things. So yeah, if you're new to the stream, this is the first time seeing this application, I'm building a project management and planning tool. Its code name is Liquid Sky, and basically, the aim is to try and allow planning to happen away from development actual actions. And what we're focused on right now is this creating a task, which would be a developer focused task. And we're about to test. Hopefully. What the? Dog, dog likes paper, loves paper. So what I need from this is I need to go into here, bring up developer tools, get the access token. Then going to go over to Insomnia. I'll bring that over here now. In the tasks API, which did start, right? No, tasks did not start, did it? Not wholly surprising. So why did nothing else kick up a fuss there? And attachments. Did I not save it? Projects. Tasks. Either it crashed or I did not save it. Not wholly surprising. I did kind of just whack all that together, didn't I? I didn't do all the configuration necessary. I thought that some of that was carried in there, but it clearly isn't. So we added authorization. We added. We need to add calls. That's for certain. Planning domain. Tasks. Yeah, that allows the client to talk to us. And then we have don't need that. Add endpoints, add that. Yeah, most of that's been abstracted out. So let's just start tasks and see what happens. Unable to resolve type of mediator I publisher. Outbox monitoring service. Restarting it is not going to change that. Mediator configuration. Domain outbox. Domain outbox. Kafka configuration, Kafka outbox, add Kafka publishing. It's not Kafka's complaining about it, it's mediator. Tasks, tasks. Everything's tasks. And we do add using console, use Kafka, use mediator, use database. Start once more, figure this out. Also need to go and edit the thing because it's unable to resolve service of type iPublisher. Some services unable to be constructed. Hosting outbox monitoring service on mediator unable to resolve type for iPublisher. What am I missing? Use Kafka, use mediator, use database. We don't need service bus. So those four are the only ones we actually need there. Add fast endpoints, add auth 0, add authorization, add transient. That's not necessarily worrying. The add database adds a repository. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I just did a work ping. Which I should probably go handle. Joy. So the challenge of that is, I've clearly, the copy and paste efforts were extensive in this piece. It's not configuring the outbox properly. I'm just missing a configuration somewhere along the lines. So what I'll do is today I will fix that and make sure that's working. So we're creating tasks, and then tomorrow we'll start the stream with getting the UI laid out. So the intention will be being able to select up here and say, okay, I want to go to tasks and introduce a completely different UI. We might just color it differently up on top for right now, just so it stands out and we know which version we're in, and then add a button that says add new task and do the dialogue for that. We'll keep all this dark mode stuff in place, but the top bar will change. So yeah, that will be the focus tomorrow. Again, if you have any interest in understanding more about this project, if you want to ask questions, then you're more than welcome to drop in the Discord as well. I'm always open to conversation about these things. And yeah. Oh, that doesn't look like C sharp. That is C sharp. So, someone to take us to. We have a .NET developer streaming. So, I'm going to raid out. I've got to go do some work. And yeah, we'll resume tomorrow. I'm bad at shout outs. I'm very bad at shout outs. I really need to do more. I'm not going to try and make up for that right this second. We'll just practice. So I'm going to raid Alicia. She's a .NET developer and is currently doing a Vue UI by that's it. So please say hello, and I will catch you all later. Thank you very much for coming and hanging out, and yeah, see you again. Bye all.